Good evening, everyone. And it is a good evening because we are in it. I am excited to be present at a gathering where this community acknowledges two people in this business to whom I looked early on while learning how to walk in real women's shoes. I am thrilled to be present at such an historic moment when this academy hails two men who are brilliant storytellers and also my treasured friends. I am beside myself that I get to have the great fortune to stand up on a glorious night and say to you that I'm bearing witness to the fact that Danny Glover shows up. He always has. He shows up. He shows up to work, to play, to build, to assist. His strong hands and a tender reach, he shows up. That is why tonight we honor him with the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award. Marian Wright Edelman said, "Service is the rent you pay for being. It is the very purpose of life and not something you do in your spare time." Danny's purpose-centered life started early at the direction of his parents, James and Carrie, both postal workers, when they brought their son along to strategy meetings and to the ground-shifting marches of the Bay Area NAACP. His mother had grown up in Jim Crow, Georgia. His father served with distinction in the Second World War, where a Black man could die for his country and often return home only to die at the hands of his countrymen if he dared try to live the freedoms he had just risked his life defending abroad. In the Glover home, dignity, respect, freedom, and justice were the centerpiece at the dinner table discussions. They were the foundational values from which Danny grew tall, and he turned into a living portrait of authentic activism. It was a time of man when he set out across the Bay Bridge. It was the height of the civil rights movement and the fierce resistance to it. Leaders who advocated that all men and women were created equal under the laws of heaven and America. Leaders who insisted America deliver on her promise to those upon whose backs she was built and sustained. Medgar, Malcolm, Martin, and Bobby were viciously gunned down. And Danny Glover stood up, even taller. He hit the books hard, and he hit the streets with an insistence. At San Francisco State, Danny was a driving force in the longest student walkout in US history, aiming to establish a Department of Black Studies. Why? Because James and Carrie's generation had fought to get universities to open wide their doors to people of color. And Danny recognized that higher education was incomplete to a farcical degree when it actively ignored a crucial defining element of American history and culture. His activism helped create the Department of Black Studies, the first one in the United States, along with the first School of Ethnic Studies. I have always gained strength from standing shoulder to shoulder with Danny, figuratively. We bonded on film sets with our shared history of coming from good folk. He brought me into the understanding of the struggles of the liberation of African peoples, culminating in our co-founding of Artists for a Free South Africa to galvanize support for a worldwide anti-apartheid movement, and especially to be of assistance to the leadership. Nelson Mandela welcomed us. He recognized us as his own. because our social activity was rooted in a love for the people. He thought Danny a comrade because Danny walked the walk of conscience, even if it meant traversing a minefield. Danny has been willing to go to jail for justice, as he did in DC, protesting at the Sudanese embassy, decrying the staggering atrocities that created an intolerable humanitarian crisis in Darfur. For a man who moves with love and delivers joy, Danny is the poster guy as a UNICEF ambassador, and he's been actively bringing hope, inspiration, and healing in that capacity since 2004. Actually, it's since 1995. He builds community wherever his foot lands. He levels his light wherever a fellow traveler pools in darkness. Danny Glover always does the right thing first, without testing the prevailing winds of public opinion. The places in his heart where he has put his time and his resources outnumber his years. Let's take a look.